Quantum healing, the future of medicine.
So once you've now got this, you're disempowered, you see yourself as a victim, these negative emotions are sitting in all the cells of your body. You're heavy, you feel heavy and armored, and you are not happy. There is no joy here. It is all negative. It has tipped you into depression, anger, and negativity, and you're affecting everyone around you. You can't help affecting people around you when you are putting out that much negative energy. So these are very difficult people to live with too when you have PTSD, is that it affects everyone around them. Likewise, when it's corrected, you're feeding everyone around you with positive energy, complete change. And that can happen very quickly with trauma touch healing. So the last one is what you're going to find, because the body, has its own intelligence. It knows that this needs to be fixed. It knows that it needs to be released. And so what it'll do a re-engagement in dysfunctional relationships and lifestyles. So where you got to this point and where you've developed it from that first traumatic experience, and now you've embodied all this negativity, and you've developed lifestyles around that negativity that are not helping the situation, the body in its own way is trying to put it in front of your face all the time. Heal this, heal this, heal this. You will often find that people that had their first traumatic experience, for example, in a car accident, if we're doing the intake and they tell me, oh yeah, I said, anything recent happened? Yes, in the last 6 months, I was in a car wreck. Okay. When was previous to that? When were you in a car wreck? When was previous to that? Usually a few years prior. And then before that car wreck, how long ago before then? And you'll trace it all the way. Usually a lot of it is from childhood, where the family was in a car wreck. And they're just repeating it over and over. This is very, very common with post-traumatic stress disorder. You'll repeat the original trauma. It is the body's way, the mind's way of saying, fix it, here it is, okay, fix it. Or here it is again, fix it. Well, of course, it can't be fixed like that. So this takes the knowledge of a metaphysician, number one, to recognize that, and also the mental people. This is not the job of the physicians in my books of recognizing that. But when these people, these survivors or victims, come to the talk therapies, this should absolutely be recognized, what it is and what they're dealing with. And that this is going to reoccur because, again, it can't be talked out. You are helping balance that person for the ultimate solution, which is working with the metaphysician who will absolutely know how to release that trauma out of the body. And that's the way it gets rid of, essentially. But you can see that went through 3 whole steps. If there's bodily injury, it must be the physicians and the surgeons that can help. The next step is the talk therapies for some balance of mind, but not for years and years indefinitely, just for a short period of time. And then referred to a good metaphysician that also recognizes the problem that we all handing off to each other, and that ultimately we can help them release this negative blockages out of the body. At this stage, it starts to feel, because there's no solutions or haven't been, because people don't know what to do with it, they sort of become comfortable with it. And therein lies the real tragedy, that because the body-mind people did not know how to heal this and did not know how to correctly refer this problem to the metaphysician, you've got probably billions of people on this planet trapped in this victimization syndrome. And they've got to cope because nobody here is showing anyone the way out. And a lot of when you're coping is you just have to, or you're sort of forced to feel comfortable with it. I can tell you in my case, I never got comfortable with it. And I think some other people don't ever get comfortable with it. But we're not the majority. I can tell you that. In my case, I understand now, looking back, that I could not get comfortable because I needed to find a solution to it. But I would say most people develop such a fear and such armoring that they stay in this little bubble of comfort zone of yuckiness, of negative emotions, trying not to affect other people, trying not to push it on other people, get a lot of suicides that way, sort of subtract themselves, but they learn sort of to live with it. And I've heard that. Well, I just learned to live with it. Why do you need to learn to live with it? Why can't you get rid of it? Why, like any other injury or disease, can you not recover from it? Because up till now, there has been no way shown for people of, victims of trauma to recover from it. So people get into this little box of scaredness, fear, scariness, and then they don't want to budge out of that. That's very hard for people to understand because so often when I'm treating someone, they'll say, my family's just done with this. I mean, they just go fix yourself, go fix yourself. How are they supposed to fix themselves if no one's referring them to anyone that can fix it? That's my issue with it. Why do insurance companies not embrace metaphysicians that are fully capable of helping these kinds of people? And it all points to money and greed and control and all the wrong things that we don't need in the healing system. You don't need it. It doesn't help us. It just helps certain people. So once that scaredness sets in, people, that sort of comfort zone of living with this crippledness, basically, and no one's saying, you don't have to be this way, you stop seeking. You don't seek any help. And if someone even tells you about it, you'll feel that, no, I'm fine. I'm fine where I'm at. I'm good. And the whole life is spent that way. A whole life is lost, especially from people trapped in it from childhood, which is most people. That's where the trauma starts. Their whole life is sort of trapped in this little box cocoon of fear. And as we've talked about in previous episodes, when you're trapped in fear, you're not trapped in love. You've lost love. You only know fear and negativity, anxiety, feeling depressed, feeling unhappy. Who wants to live like that? I did not. I can tell you, I did not. And there are people out there that do not. And these are the people who we can help bring them into the light, bring all this energy back in their bodies, clear all the trauma out. And suddenly you've got a whole new, shiny new person in front there that can go on to do brilliant things in their life. It is a very interesting process when you've treated people. Even the 3 months or so that you've treated them, they do a complete turnaround. They suddenly become empowered again. They become very full of vitality. It's the happiest feeling in the world. You just can't get over how happy and light you feel. But a much more serious thing is happening on the positive is that the neurological system, which has a lot of plasticity and it can actually recuperate and grow extra things or subtract pathways, add on pathways. It's an amazing system because it's totally connected to the quantum. So it has the ability to do all kinds of stuff. And of course, we know the quantum has this super intelligence. So what I've noticed, I started noticing that people 2 years after treating, so the first 3 months, these people are doing extraordinary. It's not the same person that what you saw 3 months ago. This is a whole different person that emerges, which is absolutely fantastic. But the neurological system now begins to heal because the brain is very affected by trauma. And we have different brains in our bodies too. We have a reptilian brain. We have an emotional brain, which is the limbic system. And we have the intelligent brain. And these get affected too, especially the emotional brain, which is part of the limbic system that gets very impacted by trauma because this is sort of our emotional center where we process emotions coming into the body and process those on where they need to go. And the connections to the frontal lobes gets very disruptive by all the adrenaline that's coming down when one is triggering every day. So the limbic system gets very inflamed, let's say. It's not giving the correct directions and information to the information centers of the brain. So often people will come to you and say, I feel like I'm mad. Really, I feel mad. Well, in essence, they are. because the brain is not working correctly. But in essence, they're not, because it is a solvable solution. Then you have the intelligent brain, which is the biggest part of the brain. But with post-traumatic stress disorder, the emotional brain kind of takes over the intelligent brain. It starts to supersede it and control things. And that's where you feel out of control, because when you trigger, especially if you're triggering badly, you will go into this crazy emotional, uncontrolled rage often, or depression. That's where the mental health people can help, is to bring a little bit more balance of understanding. Now, when they finished with let's say, the trauma touch healing, that balance is coming back again. In fact, it's pretty much there. If they're on any kind of prescription drugs, I found working with their doctors and their physicians, even as they're finishing the 3 months of treatment, they don't need the drugs anymore. They're not feeling anxious, or they're not feeling depressed, and they slowly are weaning them off these drugs. So everything starts to heal and get better. But that's not the end of the story. This amazing neurological system, which is fed by the quantum, continues healing. So every part of your neurological system, as time is going on, is getting stronger and better and more healed. And usually at 2 years after treatment, people will contact me, and they pretty much doing amazing things that they could only dream about before. They could only, you'd ask them, like, what's your hopes and dreams? And they would tell you. But there was not any hope in the state they were in to be able to take those steps. They were big things, but they couldn't take those steps because, their whole body was sort of holding them back because of this horrible disorder. So 2 years is amazing what people are doing. I can tell so many stories of the success of where people are and how excited they are that now they're doing their hopes and dreams. They've actually been able to take those steps. Their body's feeling great. They're feeling stronger. They're feeling energetic, happy. Of course, you're feeling happy when you're achieving your hopes and dreams. But 5 years later, and I can attest that from my own body, 5 years later, you're even better. So as you are leaving this whole victimization trauma cycle, you just become stronger, happier, freer, and filled with energy to achieve your hopes and dreams.